I want to take a look at the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. I'm going to look at it from the employer's side. I'm also doing one of these, what I'm going to call the Family First Act for employees. And then what I want to do is overall a Q&A. I've had a few days of questions in the office. I keep getting certain questions repeatedly. What I hope to do in this series is not just give you, here are the rules. I think there's a lot of questions out there, both from the employee and especially from the employer side. I also want to cover, there's a lot of confusion for the employer on what do I qualify for and how does it work with other programs. As we start out, there are two very important definitions. There is what we call sick leave, and then now there's what we call the expanded, what I call, the expanded sick leave. And I think actually what it's referred to as the expanded family and medical leave. First thing, let's look at the word sick leave. If you look at the law, they first talked about sick leave, not expanded family sick leave. And in that, there's two ways to qualify. The first one, your employee can qualify up to 80 hours, 2 weeks of paid sick leave at 100% of the regular pay. If one, they are sick and they're quarantined, or they have the symptoms of it and seeking medical diagnostics. So that's the first 2 week qualifying of sick leave. And the reason why I'm saying two, under this one, you get 100% of regular pay. Under the second one is still what I call sick, paid sick leave. And that is, you can qualify up to 80 hours like the first one, but you only get 2/3 of the pay, and it's for different reasons. We're caring for an individual that's quarantined, or caring for a child under the age of 18 who school or child care are closed related to the Corona-19. And finally, the employee is experiencing substantial similar conditions as part one. And I think the definition here is that that will be defined by this Health and Human Services. So in that light, when I started a couple minutes ago, I said there are two definitions, and I think we function on our language, this is an additional paid sick leave. Summary, 2 weeks, full pay, up to 80 hours, if you're quarantined or you have the symptoms and seeking the medical diagnostics. The second one is up to 80 hours, again, considered paid sick leave, but it's, again, because of you're caring for somebody that has the virus for child care. This Family First Act is only for employers under 500. There's already a set of rules for over 500. So if you're under 500, what we're talking about here today is important. Now, then what happens is if you're below 50, there's another exception. If this could compromise you staying in business, then you could file for an exception. Those instructions are not out. The form for the exception is not out. When that comes out, I'll update this. But before you just jump at the exception, also in the final series that I do, I'm going to look at how this Family First Act and the people that truly need this, we can work as an employer with under the CARES, the what everybody refers to, as a payroll protection program under the CARES Act, is that there we can integrate these two back and forth. Out of this, I hope to give the employer a lot of insight and answer a lot of questions. What's an employee? Well, under paid sick leave, it's all employees, no matter how long they've been with you. If it's under the expanded family leave, then they have to have been with you for 30 days. Also is that if you have to put in an obvious place that the employees qualify for this. If an employee comes to you and says, hey, I qualify for this, you can in no way discriminate, you can't fire him, you can take no action. And in times like this, I don't believe employers will be doing that, but we need to know the rules. Also, once they get into what we call the expanded family and medical leave, they have to come to you and say, here's the reason why. They have to give you documentation, and then you have to maintain that documentation. You've got to make them aware. All employees have to be aware. You can, again, do it, post it in an obvious place. Cannot take any action against the employee that asks for it. But you know what? I think the most important thing is the communication to the employee. Because what we're going to find out, a person could be, under the way this works, and we integrate it, you could have somebody, they have child care, and they can only take, they have to take care of their turn, the child, on, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. You, the employer, and the employee can say, hey, I can still give you the 40 hours, but if you've got to be there, if you have to take care of your child Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, then would you like to work Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, or would you like to work extra hours? But the thing about it, the big takeaway, and I said that's why when you get asked this by the employee, I think it's important to sit down and have a discussion. And it's a fact, as long as the employer and employee agree, then what happens is that you can come up with an agreement. So it is possible in part of a pay period to have some of the expanded sick leave, and it's also possible to get paid for part of your working. The other thing that I want to do in the extended Q&A, because I think it's better in Q&A, is what happens if remote work with being on what I call on-site. And because there's a whole different set of rules under this Family First Act if there is remote access to work versus I have to be on site. So, and there's very different outcomes. But again, what I wanted to do here was kind of give an overview. That way you don't have to, you don't have to listen to a whole bunch of very nitty-gritty detail. And again, I think that more in saying, here's what the questions I've been hearing and how that impacts. But I will say that in this program, paid sick leave or the expanded family and medical leave, that's considered payroll. So we're going to look at how you can qualify under the Paycheck Protection Program Act, which means that's to keep the employees working and to integrate that and work it with the paid sick leave. And I think that's important because the theory here is we're going to try to help. We're going to try to help the employee, and also I believe it's very important to keep that loyalty from those employees. And the other thing is how do I get paid for this? Well, one, there's a tax credit for this expenses, and you can get that tax credit for that. But then if you go over and get a qualified loan that could be forgiven, and I'll use the Paycheck Protection Act, and it's forgiven for payroll, then you can't take a credit on this. So the important thing, you cannot double dip in effect, but you can either get a credit or it would qualify for expenses paid during your covered period. In summary, if the only way you qualify for 100%, your employee, I should say, qualifies for 100% under this act is if they are quarantined or they have the symptoms and seeking medical diagnostics. That for a 2-week period is 100%. Whether we qualify for sick leave under the other exceptions or we qualify under the paid expanded family and medical leave, that is always at 2/3. Is it possible for it to have an employee that flips on this and back off this? Yes, it is. And again, in my Q&A questions, I'm going to go through a lot of those and specifically answer those questions.